Hi everyone, welcome to Between Worlds. Today I want to talk about the reality of the animal kingdom. So, title is Primal Instincts, Communicating with Animals. Before I get to the actual example or personal experience that I have had communicating with animals, I want to talk about a scientific fact. And you'll remember in last week's episode, I talked about how I connected with a simple rock, which is it's physical, it's tangible, right? So how does one do that? Scientifically, if you were to look at everything in the world, it all breaks down into atoms. But if you were to look at an atom under a microscope, you could barely see it, and most of it is empty space. So in many ways, we're made up of waves and particles, but the waves would be the invisible world and the particles would be the actual physical. So, you see us or animals in the physical world, but what you don't see is that spiritual self or consciousness or vibration or frequency, however you want to look at it. Okay, so that's what you're really connecting with. It's not necessarily that I have a similarity to this stone because it doesn't have the skeletal system that I have, or the cells or the blood or all of that. But once you remove that and you allow yourself to connect with your consciousness, your pure consciousness, which is a vibration and a frequency, your divine seed, your divinity, your spiritual self, then you can connect with other things, because that's how we are all connected, is in the spiritual realm. Okay, hope that makes sense to you. Okay, so how does it apply to the animal kingdom? So now I want to get to a personal story. There are theories out there that animals cannot understand our language, but I want to say to you that that's not true. I believe they do, and I have a specific example to prove it, as far as I'm concerned. And I'm not talking about training an animal through the process of food, rewards, and things like that, although I'll show you with my dog that it does work. Just, as an aside, my little dog here is Buddha, and I've taught him how to, I'll just show you with, examples. And honestly, he learned them on his own, most of the tricks that I've told him. He's very intelligent. Anyway, so if I were to say, bang, bang, that's what he does. And he kind of learned that on his own. I can make him turn, sit up, lie down. And then there were times where, beyond the tricks and the training, there have been times where I have a little bell on the door. It's a bell hooked on a string, and it hangs from the door. I'll show you a picture of it. And he knows that if he hits the bell, that tells me that he wants to go outside, so I open the door and I put him outside. Well, there have been many times where he goes to the door and I just put him outside, so I know he doesn't have to go. And he goes over and rings the bell and looks at me. And I look at him and I go, no, you've already gone out. No. And he defies me, just stares right at me and ding, ding, keeps dinging that thing, right? Finally, I got upset and I said, look, I'm tired, Buddha. This is late at night. I'm ready for bed. I'm tired. I want to go to bed. So we're not going outside. That's all I said. I've never told him that before. And he literally looked at me, got on the bed, and lay down. He knew exactly what I had told him. Okay, if you don't believe that one, how about this? This is an experience I had with a deer. I was not alone. I was with a friend, and I had never seen this deer before. Neither one of us. This is the first time we had ever gone to this place. And I think it's called Beaver Brook Farm. Anyway, it's in Canada, Ontario. I apologize, I can't recall the name. This was quite a few years ago. Probably 2002, 2003, around there. Anyway, we were working together, doing a lot of energy work together, and I just had this feeling that we needed to go to this place. I got the name, and I think it was Beaverbrook, and I just got the name, so we looked up the name. We had never been there before. And we said, okay, that must be where we're supposed to go, so let's just go. And we had no idea what we were going to. We just got an address, went to the place, and it was a sort of, kind of like a petting zoo. And they sold products there, natural products there as well. And so we went in, and there was, of course, you know, enclosed cages for animals like deer. And these particular, we came up to the huge caged area, and as soon as the deer saw you, they would go. Like, they weren't domesticated or tame deer that they would come up to you and you know, you could feed them like other animals that you see out in the, you know, in parks and things like that, where you have feed and you could feed the birds and things like that. This was completely different. They were very wild, and as soon as they would see humans, they would go into the forest area within the compound. Except for this one deer. And it was grazing. I guess it had been feeding time earlier that day, and it was grazing a little bit. And then just as we came around the corner, it saw us. It was about to leave, but it didn't leave completely like the other ones did. It just sort of stayed far enough away in the distance, and we observed it behind the fence. And then my friend Janice decided, she is, you know, very gifted Reiki master, and she started to put her hands up and test the energy and pointed it towards the deer to see what would happen. And we really weren't had any expectations or expected anything from the animal, but she decided to try it. Now, I have to tell you, her energy is super strong. She's an amazing healer. And I'll ask her if I can put her link below if you want to get in touch with her. Anyway, I consider her energy to be like lightning or fire energy. Like, if you had some trauma in your body, she would burn that right out of there, right? As opposed to my energy, which I consider more water-like, is sort of a softer, slower energy. It still heals, but in a different way. Anyway, so she puts up her hands, and at this point, I wasn't doing anything. I was just observing. And the deer reacted quite strongly to her energy. In fact, it started to go up, almost as if the energy was too strong for the deer. And then it started to sort of like do something with its mouth. It's almost like if your mouth is too dry, you kind of go, you know, you're smacking. It was doing that. And we're observing this, and I'm just amazed at how it's being affected by the energy. And at some point I thought, okay, it looks like the deer is just, it's too much for the deer. So I asked my friend, I said, maybe you should pull back your energy a little bit, because I think it might be a little too much. So let me try mine, because it's a slower energy and a gentler approach, I guess, and see if it makes a difference. And so I started to do it with my hands, and right away the deer calmed down, and then it went into sort of this euphoric state. It was interesting to see how the deer was affected by our separate energies. And literally the deer looked like it was in a trance. It was just like mellow and not going anywhere, and just seemed to be quite at peace, but not moving anywhere. It was kind of in this, almost like this psychedelic state. Then behind us, there is another enclosement with little pigs, little piglets. And all of a sudden they escape from their fenced-in yard. I don't even know how they did it, because all of a sudden we just saw them coming like past us. They went underneath the fence, the deer fence, and went directly to the deer and joined the deer in the energy. They were attracted to that energy and went alongside them and joined. And the deer allowed the other animals to sort of take part in this energetic field around the deer. And again, we're just observing this and just in amazement at how different the energies affected the deer and how it now was attracting the other animals. Then one of the workers came by in a tractor, and we kind of flagged him down and said, look, I just want to bring your attention to this. And we wanted to sort of understand what was happening more because we're healers as well. And we asked him, had anything happened to the deer before because it was reacting to our energy? And then, of course, we wanted to let him know that the little piglets had escaped and he would probably have to go get them because I'm sure it wasn't a safe place for them to be either. They should be back with their mom behind us. And he kind of looked over and was amazed too, looking and a little bit shocked, like, what is going on? And he couldn't really, process what was happening because he wasn't there when we were doing it, and he's only seeing it after the fact. So then he gets on the radio and he brings in some other people who actually, staff members from this farm. And then they go into the fenced in area with the deer, and they walk right up to the deer, and the deer leans against one of the staff members because it's still in this energy flow. And we're now watching the reaction of the human beings, the two men who had come in, and they're in shock, wondering what is going on with this deer. They've never seen it before, seen that happen. And this went on for like minutes. We're watching and observing everything and how it's being affected by this energy and how the energy has stayed in that area. It hasn't dissipated. Like, it's literally, the deer is enjoying that energy, and so are the piglets, and now, the humans are now involved in that as well. This went on for a few minutes until eventually it looked like it kind of snapped out of the energy. Maybe it started to dissipate. Snapped out of the energy, it kind of looked around and saw that there were two human beings beside it and these piglets, and just took off. And it was like, wow, that really happened. This is quite fascinating. And again, we talked to the staff members, and they said, yes, this particular deer had been gorged by a male deer with its horns, and it received a big gash in its side. It had received some medical attention and some stitches, and it's on the mend, but it had been wounded. So it made sense when we were thinking, okay, we're healers and we're sending out some energetic vibration, and the deer is taking it in and reacting to it. So perhaps we were assisting with the healing, progressing the healing process. Okay, so that alone was just, what a great experiment that was. And it was, we didn't plan on doing that. It just sort of presented itself. So then we leave that area, all of the excitement, and we go around the corner, and now we're in an area with more deer. But these deer are more, you can tell they're more domesticated and are used to human beings. They come right up to the fence. You could literally call them over and they'll come over, and you can pet them. It's that they're more like the petting zoo deer. But again, we're just sort of observing, and on the right side, so we're going down sort of like a pathway, and on this side, all caged in area, and this side, is filled with bulls and buffalo and animals like that. And on the left are the other deer. And we also notice that a couple of the does have little babies, little fawns. And there must have been one that had just been born that day, because we're looking at it and it's kind of still, unsure of its legs, and it's so tiny, and it's so close to the fence, and we're kind of looking at it. Now, just before we get close to this deer, we notice ahead of us, all of a sudden, this microburst, little tornado sort of just captures our attention. And, the sand, it's all sandy pathway, and we look at it and we're like, whoa, what's going on here? And then I'm thinking, and we both thought this actually, that, okay, we have to pay attention because the universe is trying to get our attention. Nature is trying to get our attention with this little microburst tornado. It's a little mini tornado, right? And which is, you know, not common that you see every day. It just pops up out of nowhere. So we're keeping it, you know, our eyes alert, and before we know it, this little fawn, this little thing that was just born, because it still has its, you know, that slimy outer stuff that the doe is still licking the baby's fur to get that off. And it was so, I guess, slimy and greasy that it got close to the opening. I'm just going to grab a little bit of sip of water here. So it got close to the opening, and I guess it was leaning against the fence, and it kind of just went right out the gate. And we're like, oh my gosh, it's escaped, and it's just a baby. We have to get it back to its mother. And now the mother is communicating. She's in panic mode, and she's making sounds. And I have to tell you, we have a video camera with us the whole time, but who has time to videotape everything when you're trying to, you're involved in the situation? You can't just be a bystander and just look and observe and videotape this. You would need another third person. So right away we're like, oh my gosh, we got to do something about this little thing. So my friend acts, because not only does the little thing get out of the gate, we're trying to get it, so, and it thinks it's being chased, so it's trying to get away from us. We're trying to get it, and it ends up getting into, like, what are the odds, into the bullpen. And we're like, oh my gosh, this thing is going to get trampled. If they see this little thing, we have to get there. So my friend jumps over the fence to get the this little fawn through the gate, and I'm on the other side, so then I can then take it, and I'm trying not to touch it because I don't know what the situation is, if the mother is going to deny it after a human touch. You know, we don't know, and I don't want to really mess with nature either. There has to be a respect for nature as well. But this is obviously a situation where you have to do what you have to do to protect and make sure that nature is safe. So the little fawn is now on the other side, and I'm trying to kind of shove it towards its mom, and hopefully it'll squeeze back without literally touching it, picking it up, and you know, squeezing it back in. So I'm trying to lead it. Eventually it finally figures it out, gets to it. Meanwhile, the doe is really panicking, and I'm trying to calm her. It's okay, we're bringing him, you know, the little one back, don't worry. Finally it gets back in, and of course the staff members just happen to be coming around the corner, and we're telling the story again. And I'm sure they must be thinking, what are you two girls really up to? What are you doing here? You know, this can't be, I mean, we're involved in two situations already. Are we the problem? I don't know. But we just happen to be there, you know, during these experiences. And I'm glad we were, because it was a special moment. And I have to say, throughout this whole ordeal too, I was communicating, and so was my friend Janice. We were both communicating to the doe, everything will be okay. We're trying to get your little baby back. And the doe, even though it was panicking a little bit, would look at me, and I feel it knew that I was trying to help and not harm. So it allowed me to get close. Anyway, and finally, you know, pushed the little baby through, and she took the little one and then moved on to get the little one out of, you know, danger, which was, you know, the little one could squeeze through the gate. And it was just a, you know, a small opening, but, you know, I don't even know how the thing got through, but it did. Anyway, so then that was over. That ordeal was over, and we're thinking, what else could possibly happen? So we end up walking around, you know, some more, and then we'd had enough, and I guess, you know, we've done our duty here now. It's time to go home. And on the way back, because we had had such this amazing experience with this deer, I wanted to call it Bernadette for Saint Bernadette. And I told the deer I'd given it, you know, Dub called her Bernadette. And so on the way back, I thought, okay, I wonder if we'll see her again. And and see if she connects with us, because she has felt our energy. She's literally been in our vibration, our frequency, right? Because we shared that with her. So maybe she's had some connection with us. Who knows? So let's go see if we could find her. So on the way back, and we didn't go the same direction. We came the back way now, because we're going the exit. We're going to the exit. So we're kind of behind the farm. So the encasement, if you think about it, it's this one, big long rectangle, and it's a large area. It's not a small pen. It's a large area with forest in there too. And so the likelihood of seeing her is, not very good odds, but who knows? So we start walking and we see there are a few deer, all females, and they're sort of all together, lying down. And as we're walking up right away, they see us and they get up and they start to leave. Now, I recognized Bernadette from her coat, and she was with another doe, and they had been walking. So they left the little group as well, but they stayed along the fence and they were moving together, right? And I thought, okay, well, let's just follow them a little bit and see if, they stop and she'll stop. Who knows? Let's just go for it. So we walked along, and then they stopped, so we stopped, again, trying to respect nature and not scare them or anything like that. And we just observed them from a distance, right? We stayed far enough back and just watched. And it was so beautiful, just to, they're gorgeous. I find deer just absolutely graceful and beautiful creatures. And then I thought, okay, I just really want to be able to touch her for some reason. I just had this desire to touch her and to see if she would want to allow me to touch her. Now, I'm not talking, I'm not trying to say go up to a tiger or a lion or a bear in the wild and go and try my method and go, oh, I want to just touch a bear. Respect that they're wild animals and they can harm. You don't know. So I just wanted to, make sure that disclaimer is out there, because I don't want people to all of a sudden go, oh, Caroline told us we could, just talk to animals and that they would listen to everything we said. No, they're still wild animals and they may not care what you have to say. So this one's a little different, but I still believe that they hear what we say. And I'm going to explain my theory after I'm done with this example. So I asked my friend, I said, let's just get a little bit closer and we'll go slowly, and I just want to see if she'll let me touch her, if she'll stick around. So we slowly started to walk towards the fence. And of course, right away, they started to move. And in that moment, the other deer, just bolted out of there right away. But Bernadette, she was leaving, but she wasn't bolting like a frightened deer. And so I had an opportunity to put my hands up, and I just said, please stop. Stop. We are friendly. We mean no harm. I just want to be able to touch you, if you don't mind. I'd really like to be able to touch you. I don't want to harm you. That's all I want. But in that moment, right when I said, please stop, that deer stopped in its tracks. It just stopped. It didn't turn around. It just stopped. And that's why I continued to communicate with the deer, because I figured, it heard me. It listened. It knew what I said. This was not a trained deer. This is not like the other ones that were more domesticated. And it wasn't looking at me. It had just stopped. So its behind was facing us, not turned around, right? Okay, so then I said, I continued on asking that, would it mind if I just touched it? So now my friend and I were right at the fence, right alongside the fence when we're asking this. And she's about, if I'm looking distance-wise, maybe 12 feet away from us. Okay, so far enough away. I could feel the energy. It was almost like I was so in the present moment that it was like the whole world was on pause. And I could see the space between me and the deer. It's almost like the vibration or the frequency that was being put out it was palpable. You could feel it. It was fascinating. It was like charged. The energy around us, the air around us was charged with what I had been asking and my desires. So the frequency of light and love, I believe, was being sent out so that the deer could read the energy, the vibration, or the frequency I was sending out. So it's not necessarily it understood English, but I feel that when we speak words, those words have a frequency and an energy. And when we speak it, the words come from a place of thought and feeling. And that energy, that vibration, that frequency comes out in that word and is being directed out to another person. So when you think about it, or an animal, when you think about it, when someone is angry and they lash out and they're like yelling, you can feel that energy. And doesn't it kind of go, whew, I can feel it. Or there's something sinister in the room and you can feel the heaviness. You can feel it in the air, right? You can just sense it. Well, it was the same thing. It was like everything you could see, every little particle, vibration or frequency in the air in that moment. And that deer, it's completely slow motion. That deer turned around and it looked at me, looked right in my eyes, walked directly to me, like literally right to me, put itself sideways along the bar. Part of me was like, oh my gosh, it listened, it did exactly as I said. Is this really happening? Oh my God, I better pet it. It was so beautiful and amazing and lovely and loving. And I got a chance to pet her. And I was petting her and I was thanking her the whole time. Like, thank you so much. I've loved this experience. This was so special to me. I hope it was special to you. Thank you so much. I was so grateful. And my friend did the same thing. We were so grateful that we had this incredible experience. And after I had finished speaking and touching her, I said, thank you very much for this experience. She walked away. She stopped again, looked right at me as if, again, you're welcome. It was whatever. It was a pleasurable for her too that she had this wonderful connection with human beings. It was such an amazing experience for both of us. And I hope for the deer as well. But I'll never forget it. Because I believe when we communicate that it is a vibration that we're sending out, especially when it comes from a loving space, from light and love. When we become aware of our spiritual self, which is light combined with the love, that's our spiritual sense, our vibrancy, our frequency. We're not just the body, the physical. We're more than that. We can communicate with anything. Anything. And that just opens up to infinite possibilities that we have. And the reason I'm bringing up this today is because this is airing on Earth Day, and I wanted us to just have a real appreciation for nature and wildlife and animals. And hopefully when we come out of this self-isolation, that we will have a greater appreciation for our environment and for Earth. You know, especially since being on a standstill, we see now the effect that we have had on our environment through pollution, you know, traffic, cars, all that kind of stuff. We're seeing how pollution has cleared in many cities. You know, the Himalayas are being seen clearly for the first time in I don't even know how long. There's just so much evidence out there that shows what kind of effect we've been having on our planet, and we don't have to continue that anymore if we become aware and really start changing the way we do things and tread softer on our planet, because we have this wonderful, beautiful opportunity to communicate with nature, to enjoy what it brings us, and hopefully we can allow it to enjoy humans treading on their native habitat. When you think about it, they were here probably way longer than we were. We're treading on their habitat. So I'm really hoping that this this true story will have a positive effect on your perspective on the environment and animals moving forward. And just one more, spread that love out there in the world when we finally get a chance to really be out there again, and hopefully make some positive changes in the world so that we can keep this beautiful planet in the best shape possible, so we don't lose it, because we really truly are blessed to be able to experience this. And now I'd like to leave you with beautiful images that a friend of mine, Craig Ing, took when he was out at the marina in Marina del Rey. There were some seals there, and of course I took when I went to Kenneth Hahn Park in Los Angeles and observed the wildlife there in the gardens. It was quite beautiful. So I want to leave that with you, my gift to you, nature from Los Angeles, and hope you enjoy. Thanks for watching, and don't forget, please like, share, subscribe to help the message get out there and for the show to continue. Thank you so much.